You ever wonder how far people will go for a joke? My parents thought they were so clever. They left me at a train station, smiling, laughing, saying, "Let's see how she finds her way home." I was 15. They called it a lesson. I call it the day I died. I remember staring at the yellow line on the platform, the paint chipped and dirty, the rails humming with the next train coming in. My mom gave me that look, the one that was half amused and half cold. My dad gave me a playful shove toward the bench and tossed my backpack down. They turned, giggling, and walked away. I thought they'd come back. Really, I did. For hours, I waited. Maybe they'd pop out from behind the vending machine, or come rushing back to hug me, laughing about how I was too sensitive. But the sun slipped behind the station roof, and the shadows grew longer, and there was no sign of them. No text, no call, nothing. My throat felt dry. My mind kept spinning, searching for some reason, some clue that made this all a test, a prank that wasn't real. But the night air hit me like a slap, and I realized nobody was coming back. That's when something cracked inside me. I remember a woman on the platform looking at me, maybe thinking about asking if I was okay, but then turning away. Because nobody wants to get involved, right? I was just another kid sitting there with a broken look. I wanted to cry, but the tears refused to fall. I wanted to run after them, but I had no money, no ticket, no plan. My phone? Dead. They'd taken my charger that morning, laughing about teaching you to remember your stuff next time. I could almost hear them laughing as they drove home without me. I could see them telling my little brother how Mary will be fine. I wasn't fine. I was 15. Alone, forgotten. And on that cold bench, with no one to lean on, I felt the last bit of trust I had for the world snap in half. If parents could do this, what hope did I have for anyone else? That night, I promised myself I would never be this weak again. I didn't know what would come next. I only knew I would survive. Somehow. If they wanted to see how I'd find my way home, I decided there would be no home to come back to. Because the Mary they left behind on that platform, she was gone. If you're as hooked as I was the day this all happened, please tap that subscribe button and hit the bell. Before the train station, before the abandoned bench and the silent night, there was a pattern my parents called parenting, but I'd come to understand was something closer to cruelty dressed up in a smile. They loved to humiliate me. That was their thing. Every birthday, they'd pull a prank. One year, they faked forgetting my party. Another year, they gave me a gift box filled with garbage as a joke, only to laugh at my tears. I was supposed to laugh with them, but I never could. Mom always told me, "Mary, you need to toughen up. You're too soft." Dad would smirk. "One day, you'll thank us for making you strong." Maybe I was soft. Maybe I was too eager to please, desperate for any scrap of love they threw my way. I was the kind of kid who stayed quiet at the dinner table, never fought back, always worried if I did something wrong. They knew that, and they exploited it. Every little slip-up, a dropped plate, a wrong answer at school, the time I came home 5 minutes late, they'd pile on, mock me, shame me, push me to tears. Then they'd laugh, always laugh. "It's just a joke," they'd say, as if those words could erase every bruise on my heart. So the day they decided to leave me at the train station, I guess they thought it was just the next step. Just another lesson. Another way to break me, to show me how worthless I was in their world. It was supposed to be harmless, they'd claim later. But that day, to me, it felt like the final nail. I remember how cheerful Mom was that morning. She packed a lunch for my brother, but nothing for me. She didn't even look at me while we got in the car. Dad teased me about missing my alarm clock, telling me I'd better learn some real-world consequences. I should have seen it coming. They parked near the station, waved off my questions, and told me to hop out. Dad's voice had that twisted excitement, like he was setting up the best prank of his life. I stepped out of the car with my old backpack, and before I could even turn around, They slammed the car doors shut and drove away, tires screeching. My stomach dropped. I stood there on the platform, blinking in the morning light, convinced they'd circle back in a minute, maybe with a camera to capture my funny reaction. But they didn't come back. That was the moment I understood something ugly. They'd never really loved me. Not in the way I needed to be loved. If love was a joke, night fell at the station like a punishment. And that, I suppose, the cold was cruel, is how we got through my thin sweater, making my teeth chatter. Every passing train blurred by, carrying strangers who had somewhere to go, someone waiting for them. I had no one. My parents weren't coming back. I sat on the hard bench, trying to look normal so no one would think I was in trouble. The security guards barely glanced at me. A mother walked by holding her daughter's hand, pulling her a little closer as they passed me, as if I were dangerous. No one asked if I was okay. Eventually, the station closed for the night, lights flickering off one by one, metal gates rolling down. I felt a tight panic in my chest. I had nowhere to sleep, no money, no phone. I stood outside, staring at the dark tracks, my mind screaming, "What now?" That's when he approached. A man, maybe mid-30s, wearing a worn-out leather jacket, with greasy hair and a stale cigarette smell. He looked at me the way a fox might look at a rabbit. "Hey," he said, too friendly. "You waiting for someone?" My heart slammed against my ribs. I tried to hide my fear, but I'm sure he could smell it. "Train's not running till morning," he continued. "If you want, I know a place you can sleep." Every instinct I had told me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I could only shake my head. He stepped closer. "It's warm, safe, better than freezing out here." There was something in his voice, something too smooth, too rehearsed. I felt my hands start to shake. "No, thank you," I stammered, backing away. His smile vanished, replaced by something sharp and angry. "Suit yourself," he snapped, then turned and walked off into the night. I watched him go, my stomach churning. Even alone, I wasn't safe. I spent that night huddled behind a vending machine, hugging my knees to my chest, eyes wide open until the sun rose. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow looked like him coming back. When morning finally came, I was dirty, hungry, and so tired. But I was still alive. Days passed like that. I found scraps in trash bins, drank water from a bathroom sink at the station, tried to stay invisible. At home, I imagined my parents laughing, telling everyone how stubborn I was, how I'd come crawling back any minute. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. I told myself if I just lasted one more night, I'd figure it out. Then another, and another. But no one came to save me. By the third day, I started to understand a hard truth. If I wanted to survive, I'd have to trust absolutely no one. Because even strangers offering a helping hand might come with a knife hidden behind their back. And if my own parents could leave me, what hope did I have for anyone else? By the end of that first week, I thought I'd seen every dark corner of the station, every cold bench, every empty stare of people who stepped over me like I wasn't even there. I was fading. I could barely stay awake. My legs ached. My stomach burned with hunger, and I was so cold I thought I might freeze to death. That's when she found me. Her name was Lorraine. She was older, maybe 60, her skin weathered by years of street living, but her eyes were kind in a way I hadn't seen for a long time. She wore a wool coat patched in places and carried a battered shopping bag full of scraps. "You alone?" she asked, her voice scratchy but gentle. I nodded. She studied me for a moment, then sighed. "Come on, girl. You'll freeze out here." She took me to an abandoned bus shelter under the overpass. It wasn't warm, but at least it was dry and no one bothered us there. She handed me half a stale sandwich, and I almost cried as I ate it. For the first time since my parents left me, I felt seen. Lorraine told me stories about how she'd ended up on the street. A daughter who died, a husband who drank himself to death, no family left to turn to. She talked about loss the way some people talk about the weather, like it was just part of life. She showed me how to dig through the bins behind the bakery where they threw out half-good bread. She taught me which shelters would turn me away and which ones might let me sneak a shower. I started to think maybe I'd found someone I could trust. Maybe not a mother, but something close enough. But good things didn't seem to last for me. One night, I woke up to find Lorraine coughing, badly. The wet, rattling kind of cough that sounds like dying. She tried to wave me off, but I could see the fear in her eyes. By the next morning, she could barely stand. I begged her to let me help, to get her to a hospital, but she refused, wheezing that they'd just put her down like a dog. She collapsed that afternoon, right there under the overpass, holding my hand. And then she was gone. I sat there for hours, stunned, her head resting in my lap, unable to process it. Lorraine was the first person who had offered me kindness since my parents left me, and the universe took her away too. It felt like another betrayal, like a final message burned into my bones. Don't trust anyone. When they took her body away, I stood in the freezing wind, empty, alone again, but a new kind of hard inside. If even kindness died on the street, then there was no more space in me for weakness. I promised myself I would never let my guard down again. Not for anyone. After Lorraine died, I felt like the last thread holding me to any kind of humanity had been cut. I left the bus shelter that night, carrying nothing but a stale roll I'd found in a trash bin. The world felt meaner than ever, like it had been waiting for me to break. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. I found a different corner, farther away from the station where no one knew me. I needed to disappear, to burn the old version of me until nothing was left. That was the only way I'd survive. I took a deep breath and decided to stop being Mary, the girl who waited for parents who would never come. That night, on a cardboard mat behind a shuttered store, I promised myself something. I will never need anyone again. I watched the neon signs flicker above me, the noise of the street becoming a dull roar, and felt this strange calm. My heart hurt, but at least it wasn't surprised anymore. I'd learned the rules. If you rely on people, they'll gut you. If you trust them, they'll leave you in the dark. No more trust. The next morning, I went to a public bathroom, splashed water on my face, and looked at my reflection. My skin was dirty, my eyes hollow, but there was something in them I hadn't seen before. A sliver of steel. I took Lorraine's advice to heart, even though she was gone. I picked up a day job hauling crates for a food stall, working for cash. The man barely noticed me, but paid enough that I could eat. At night, I hid my wages in the lining of my shoe, terrified someone would steal them. I slept with one eye open, always. Slowly, painfully, I started putting together a plan. I would save every penny. I would keep my head down, work until I had enough to disappear completely. No more living in their city, breathing their air, seeing those places that reminded me of my parents. A new name, a new life. That was my target. I learned which soup kitchens would feed me without questions. I memorized the faces to avoid. The men who watched too closely. The other kids who'd steal from your pockets while you slept. Piece by piece, I built a wall around myself. No one would get in. No one would ever hurt me like that again. At night, I still saw Lorraine in my dreams, her thin hands wrapping around mine, telling me, "Survive, girl." And I listened. I carried her words with me. Every day I survived, I counted as a tiny victory. They would have called me broken, but I knew I was something else. Unstoppable. My parents would never recognize me if they saw me again. That thought gave me a tiny spark of hope. Because one day, I'd make sure they did see me again, and they would regret ever leaving me behind. I don't know exactly when I stopped surviving and started planning, but the change felt like flipping a switch. I worked every miserable job I could find. Cleaning, carrying boxes, scraping gum off sidewalks. The worse the job, the more determined I got. Every dollar was a brick in the wall I was building between me and the girl they'd left on that train platform. I slept in shelters when I could get a space, on sidewalks when I couldn't, until I'd saved enough for a cheap room in a boarding house. 4 filthy walls and a shared toilet. But it was mine. It meant I was no longer prey on the street. There were nights I wanted to scream. Nights the memories of my parents laughing haunted me so badly I woke up shaking. But then I'd remember Lorraine's voice. "Survive, girl." And I did. I started going to night classes using a fake name. Nobody cared enough to look too closely. I was a ghost, a stray. I liked it that way. The first time I opened a textbook again, something in me lit up. Numbers, business, accounting. Those made sense. They followed rules. They were predictable. Unlike people. I poured everything I had into learning. A volunteer tutor at the shelter noticed how fast I picked things up and offered to help me apply for a GED. I almost turned her down. Trust was still poison to me. But something made me take a chance. Maybe Lorraine's memory. Maybe the smallest spark of hope. I studied for months, terrified I would fail, terrified I'd disappoint myself. But I passed. When that certificate was handed to me, I felt the smallest sense of victory, a seed of something bigger. I took jobs that paid better, still under my fake name. I kept my head down, saved, and kept climbing. By 23, I was working for a small accounting firm, buried in spreadsheets. I'd changed my name so completely I barely remembered Mary. I'd built a shield out of numbers, hard work, and ruthless focus. One day, my manager left behind a financial report by mistake, and curiosity made me read it. In those numbers, I saw a pattern. I saw weaknesses. For the first time, I realized something. I could do more than survive. I could own everything. That night, I lay in my rented room staring at the cracked ceiling, my mind racing. My parents had left me with nothing, convinced I'd come crawling home. What if instead, I built an empire so big they'd have to kneel before me? That idea became my obsession. No more begging. No more hoping. If they wanted to test how I'd find my way home, I'd show them a home so far beyond their reach, they'd choke on their own laughter. I didn't know yet how to get there, but I knew one thing with perfect clarity. I would. The day I saw their names pop up in a foreclosure notice, I felt nothing at first. It was like reading about strangers. Just another file. Another failing family about to lose their house. Then I saw the address. The address of my childhood. My chest went cold. I could still picture that house. The squeaky porch, the cracked window Dad always promised to fix, the flower bed Mom used to pretend was her pride and joy. My home. Or what used to be. They were broke. They'd defaulted on their mortgage. Years of bad decisions, no safety net, no money left. Somehow that felt fair. Their suffering didn't make me happy, but it made me calm. I ran the numbers a dozen times, then made my choice. I bought their debt. Quietly, through a shell company no one would ever trace back to me. In less than a month, the papers were signed. I owned them. The house, the debt, their pride, everything. They had no idea. Part of me wondered if I should leave them alone, let the bank evict them like any other statistic. But I couldn't. I needed them to see me, needed them to feel what it was like to lose everything, to stand on the edge of the world with no one to save you. So I did the one thing they'd never expect. I showed up. It had been 15 years. I saw their eyes change when they opened the door. Shock first, then confusion, then fear. They recognized me, even though I was nothing like the girl they left behind. I was taller, stronger, sharper. There was no trace of their quiet, obedient daughter in the woman who stood on their porch. Mom's voice trembled. "Mary?" Hearing my name felt like poison. I stepped inside without asking, and the memories hit me like a slap. The same table, the same chipped floors, the same walls that once heard my silent tears. I laid the papers on their kitchen counter. "You owe me," I told them, voice steady. "And I own this house." Their faces fell. Dad tried to bluster, to shout, to deny. Mom reached for me, pleading, "It was a joke, Mary. You know that." A joke. 15 years later, they still called it a joke. I looked at them, so small and desperate, and I felt nothing. They taught me not to trust, not to love, to survive. Now they could learn the same. "You have 2 days to leave," I said, cold as steel, "or I'll have you removed." The moment the words left my mouth, something shifted in me. I wasn't a scared little girl anymore. I was their lesson come to life. And this time, I was the one laughing on the inside. I watched them pack their things through the cracked window, moving like ghosts in their own home. The same people who once laughed while I waited alone at a train station now moved with fear in their eyes. They didn't even argue after I showed them the legal papers. They didn't threaten, didn't fight. Maybe they knew there was no fighting me anymore. They left behind everything that couldn't fit in a few battered suitcases. I stood outside as they stepped into a rusty old sedan, their faces pale, their shoulders bent. Dad looked at me one last time. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came. Mom's eyes were wet, her hands shaking. I didn't flinch. They pulled away, and for the first time in 15 years, I had that house, their house, all to myself. I stepped inside. It smelled the same. The floorboards creaked the same. It was like walking through a graveyard of my childhood. I touched the dented doorframe where I used to measure my height, year after year, hoping they'd be proud. Pride. That was always the trap, wasn't it? I thought if I were good enough, obedient enough, they'd love me. But love had been their weapon, their joke, their game. Now I stood here with the ultimate power over them. And somehow it didn't taste as sweet as I imagined. I sat down at the old kitchen table, hands folded, letting the silence wrap around me. Was this justice? Was it revenge? Or was it just me becoming the same monster they'd once been? For a moment, I almost wished I could ask Lorraine what she would think of me now. Lorraine, who taught me to survive but never to hate. But Lorraine was gone. In the quiet of that empty house, I finally let the tears fall. Not because I regretted what I'd done, but because I realized I could never go back to the girl I once was. That Mary was dead the moment they left her at that station. And this woman sitting here? She was stronger, yes. Harder, but also lonelier than I ever imagined. I stood up and walked out the front door without locking it behind me. I had no reason to keep the house. It was just a shell, like everything else they'd ever given me. I left it behind, just like they left me. As I stepped into the sunlight, the weight on my chest lifted, if only a little. Maybe this was freedom, or maybe it was the final price I had to pay. Mary's voice steady, with quiet strength. If you were me, would you have done the same? Tell me in the comments below, because this story isn't just mine anymore. If you'd like, I can help you format these chapters for a voiceover script or expand any emotional details. Just let me know.